actual title.
Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is a video game-esque film based on the graphic novels by Brian Lee O'Malley. Following the narrative of the main character Scott Pilgrim, we are taken through the journey of seeing Scott fight and defeat Ramona Flowers' 7 evil exes. Although Scott Pilgrim conforms to some forms of hegemonic masculinity, such as falling for Ramona, a female love interest, and being motivated to defeat the exes because it means that he would be with her, Scott goes against hegemonic masculinity as his physique and strength go against our typical assumptions of what a super should be. Scott Pilgrim is a 22-year-old bass player. He is not our typical hero. Rather than gaining strength through radioactive material or money, he is a very average man. He is not overtly muscular and has a minimal physique. He participates in activities that would be considered uncool, such as playing the bass and playing video games. Due to his quirkiness, he is automatically a character that we want to root for because he is an underdog.
Fit the Scott in the books for me in terms of, like, I don't think anybody else could have really pulled off the goofiness, the charm, the massive insecurities, and that it would be funny. Delusion. Pilgrim is kind of like it's very much a wish fulfillment thing about like a guy who's, you know, grown up as a gamer, actually getting to kick ass in the real world.
Wright is taking the character of Scott and choosing him to be played by an actor that goes against our views of supers that fit hegemonic masculinity. Media scholar Jeffrey Brown says that masculinity is a cluster of desirable traits: hard, not soft; strong, not weak; reserved, not emotional; and active, not passive. Scott specifically aligns with the opposite traits of masculinity. He is not overtly hard or strong due to his lack of physique and muscles, and he is an emotional and passive character. He tries to ignore his problems until he eventually has to confront them. Scott's transformation in the film is distinct because it is purely an internal transformation. There are no training montages of Scott working out or preparing for battle. He is typically thrown into battle or attacked without his knowledge by the exes. He has some extreme strength in the moment of his fights, but when he is not prepared, he significantly lacks in strength. The instant strength is more so mimicking video game norms, such as power-ups after he defeats the exes.
Sweet. Coins.
Scott is able to overcome and defeat the exes through his wits and smarts. Scott uses intelligence as a way to maintain his masculinity. Although the movie covers the battle scenes between Scott and other exes, differing in gender, masculinity, and strength, a very obvious setup in the film is Scott being placed against Lucas Lee, played by Chris Evans, who is most notably known for his role as Steve Rogers or Captain America in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Pitch for Scott Pilgrim was so strange. Lucas Lee is this movie star, but he really doesn't have much range, and he thinks he's great, but he's actually terrible, and I think you'd be perfect. I said, okay.
In a way, like, sort of having another actor who would have been more obviously physical wouldn't have seemed as surprising or funny to have them involved in fight scenes.
Having Sarah and Evans be put at opposite ends of superheroes' physique adds more to the contrast of how supers succeed in the world of Scott Pilgrim.
So can you do a grindy thingy now?
Are you serious?
There are like 200 steps and the rails are garbage.
Well, hey, if it's too hardcore.
You really think you can goad me into doing a trick like that?
There are girls watching.
Somebody get me my board.
Lucas values his physique more, and his confidence and power comes from his highly muscular body. Scott uses the norms of hegemonic masculinity in order to defeat Lucas. By actively going against hegemonic masculinity, the film is challenging what our ideal physique of a super is. Enemies can be defeated through smarts rather than through overtly masculine elements. Through casting of Sarah Scott, we are able to see how, by definition, an unmasculine super who lacks a typical muscular physique uses intelligence rather than physical strength to defeat Ramona's 7 evil exes. By having Sarah play a leading super, he is actively breaking down what our view of a super is. He challenges the hegemonic masculine ideals of strength, action, and reservedness through his physicality of Scott and leaning into Scott's emotional and physical vulnerability.